Welcome to Unit 1. We are going to be talking about how to classify matter today. As you can see, we're going to start with this flow chart. It's going to be very helpful throughout the year to help you kind of go through the thought process of saying, hey, what kind of substance do I have? So matter, I'm sure you guys have heard that term before. I'm not going to kind of get into the definition of it, but pretty much just everything around you. It can be broken up into two subcategories that can be broken down further from there. So the first one is we're going to kind of go over here on the left side. If they cannot be separated by a physical means, okay? So physical means would be something like filtration or distillation, terms that we're going to talk about in a video coming up. These are known as pure substances, okay? Meaning that each piece is going to look the same. All right. Each piece within that substance has exactly, and that's the key word there, the same composition. All right. Exactly the same composition. Whereas on the flip side, over here on the right, if you can't separate them by a physical means, those are known as mixtures. And there's two that we're going to talk about. Okay, each piece is different. Okay, which means that it's not pure. And then the big thing to remember here with mixtures is that they have different ratios. So over here on the left, okay, if they can not be separated, if they're pure substances, they're going to have the same ratios. Okay. So continuing on, if they cannot be separated by a chemical means, so first off we talked about physical, now we're talking about, again, these pure substances on the left here. You can have chemical or physical means. If they can't be separated by chemical means, that means they're an element. Okay, that's your simplest form of matter. And that's a big definition to make sure that you guys remember throughout the whole year. Elements are the most simple form of matter. You can't get anything smaller than that to keep the same substance. Now, we're going to learn that, hey, yeah, elements are made up of atoms, which are made up of different particles, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about things that have the properties of the substance, okay? So an example here, you could say something that's monatomic. Now, we'll talk about that throughout the year, but just look at that prefix, okay? Monatomic equals something like sodium, okay? It's one element, okay? Or you could have something that we call diatomic, which we're going to talk about the 7 diatomic elements throughout the year a little bit later on. Something like Cl2 that has 2 atoms. Okay. Now, if they can be separated by physical means, that means we have a compound. Other terms are molecules. Again, we will talk about all of that as we go throughout the year. Okay. So this is where you have 2 plus. So what I say by 2 plus, guys, is 2 or more different elements chemically combined. Well, can you guys think of an example from everyday life, past experience of science? What's an example of a compound? Best example, H2O, sodium chloride, NaCl. You've probably heard of those. All right, so pure substances, you can have either an element or a compound. Okay, if it cannot be separated by chemical means, it's element. If it can be, then it's going to be a compound. Over here, right, things that can be, again, separated by physical means, so mixtures. So mixtures, there's still 2 types. They have the same composition throughout it. It's called homogeneous. Okay? It's a homogeneous mixture. It's uniform. That prefix there, homo, means same. Uniform throughout. Distinct. Okay, it's got a very distinct pattern. Examples of this would be something like salt water. Every time you take a drink of salt water or Gatorade, right, it's the same every time. You don't get sugar in one sip, water in the next, and flavoring in the next. It's the same every time, okay? Where if it has a different composition throughout, it's called heterogeneous. And I did not spell that right. Hopefully you did not follow the hetero. I don't know what was happening there. Heterogeneous mixture. Alright, so if homogeneous is the same, that means this is not uniform throughout. Okay, there's no pattern. It's just kind of jumbled together in any way it wants to be. So an example for this would be something like salad. 1 minute you're going to get a crouton, the next you get lettuce or tomato or whatever. Pizza, pepperoni in one bite, more sauce, less sauce, more cheese, etc. And a chocolate chip cookie. I mean, the list could go on and on and on. Okay, the big key you want to ask yourself is, hey, if I bite into this substance, is it the same throughout or is it different? Okay, we're going to do a lot of practice kind of figuring out what's going on with these, how to identify them. And one thing that can help with that are these particle diagrams. So over here, okay, for elements, I'm going to split them up into monatomic as well as diatomic. So monatomic, guys, would be represented with just like single circles, okay, nothing combined with it. Diatomic is going to be two of the same circles connected, okay, where you have two atoms bonded. Well, if we have a compound, you're going to have two different atoms with it. So we can do something like this, maybe like H2O, where it's got, you know, your O would be that blue dot, and then the two H's would be your white circles. If we talk about homogeneous mixture over here, okay, we've got something that looks like this. Notice how it's a pattern throughout when we look at the particle level. Now, is it always this simple? No. Okay, but we're going to try and keep it as simple as possible in this class. And then you have something like a heterogeneous mixture where maybe you have a monatomic element, okay, and then you've got this guy here in the middle, and you've got this guy up here, or he could be down here, or you could have like this guy here. Like, it's not the same, okay? It's not always the same. It's not a repeating pattern, okay? So that is matter. Those are the 4 different types that we could have. Make sure you guys kind of know how to do this and do the practice in part 2. Ask any questions you may have, and I'll see you in the next video.